I will never forget the way he said my name that day. "Marcus, can you come here for a minute?" It wasn't just any minute. It was the kind of voice you recognized right away. Cold, flat, like someone who already decided the verdict before the trial even started. I was in the hallway by the service elevator, finishing up tightening a loose door closer when I heard him. I put my wrench down on the maintenance cart and walked toward the community room where the voice had come from. When I pushed the door open, they were all there. The property manager, Sarah, 2 security guards from the building, and him, the most influential resident in the place, Mr. Thompson. White, mid-50s, high-powered attorney, top-floor penthouse in a luxury complex just outside the city. The kind of man used to being the loudest voice in any room, even when he wasn't raising it. He was sitting with one leg crossed over the other, phone face down on the table. He didn't stand up when I walked in. "Have a seat, Marcus," he said, pointing at a chair without really looking at me. I sat down. I could feel the weight of my uniform on my shoulders, the navy polo with the building logo that had started to fade a bit from too many washes, and I could feel that other weight too, the one I knew way too well. The weight of knowing before anyone said a word that I was sitting in that chair as the suspect. Sarah cleared her throat. "Marcus, we need to talk about some missing items around the building," she began. I took a breath. "What kind of missing items?" I asked. This time it was Mr. Thompson who answered. "Watches, small valuables, cash," he said. "Things that just disappear from apartments, and conveniently, always on floors and at times when you happen to be around." He put a little emphasis on "you," like that word alone was already evidence. "So you're saying I'm stealing?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He gave a short, humorless laugh. "I'm not saying anything yet," he replied. "But the facts speak for themselves. I've lived here 10 years. Nothing ever went missing, and suddenly now it does? You really expect me to believe that's a coincidence?" I swallowed hard. I'd been working maintenance in that complex for over a decade. I knew every elevator, every leak, every breaker panel, every sticking door. I seen 3 property managers come and go. I watched kids grow from toddlers running in the lobby to teenagers rolling their eyes at their parents in the parking garage. I was the only constant no one really noticed. "I have never taken anything from anybody," I said. "If you have proof of something, show me, but I didn't do this." Sarah twisted her fingers together on top of the table, clearly uncomfortable. "Marcus, Mr. Thompson has had some items go missing from his unit. He's not the only one, but his apartment has been hit the hardest. He brought some footage from an internal camera he installed in his hallway." She turned her laptop toward me. On the screen, I saw grainy black and white footage of the 12th floor hallway, timestamp and date of the top. 2 days earlier, the door to his penthouse on the right. I saw myself on the screen, pushing my maintenance cart down the hallway. I stopped by his door, checked the handle, touched the frame. "I was checking the door closer and the seal," I said quickly. "You asked us to inspect all the fire doors on this floor, remember? The latch was loose. I was just—" "Keep watching," he cut in. In the next clip, I walked down the same hallway again, later in the day. No cart this time, just my backpack slung over one shoulder. I walked past his door, glanced down the hallway, adjusted the strap. "Look at the backpack," he said. "You can see it looks light when he goes in and a lot fuller when he comes back out." He wasn't wrong. On the footage, it did look that way. "I carry that backpack every day, sir," I said. "It's got my lunch, a spare shirt, some tools. You just never noticed before because you never paid attention." He leaned back in his chair. "Marcus, I'm a criminal defense attorney," he said. "I do this for a living. I know patterns, I know opportunity. Don't take this the wrong way, but who do you think in this building has more motive to walk off with jewelry or cash, me or you?" The word he didn't say out loud hung in the air between us. Poor, black, staff.
Sarah tried to soften the moment. "We just want to understand what's going on. No one's filing an official report yet, but it's serious. Other residents have come to me. The HOA board is pressuring us." I looked at each of them. I thought about my mortgage payment, already late, my mom's medications, my daughter's community college tuition I was trying to help with. "I've worked here more than 10 years. You know that, Sarah. There has never been a problem like this. There has never been something missing that pointed to me. If there is another camera that shows something, I'm the first one who wants to see it, because I know what I didn't do." He snorted. "Another camera? There isn't one. I put that camera up because that hallway wasn't on the building system. The rest only covers common areas. Up there, just me and my camera. Which means up there, Marcus, the only people who know what really goes on are you and me." The way he said it bothered me. There was something in that sentence that stuck. But underneath all that, I had a feeling. I didn't have words for it. I just felt it in my chest. That still wasn't the whole truth.
To make any sense of how I ended up in that chair, with those eyes on me like I was already guilty, I have to back up a few weeks. My name is Marcus Reed. I'm 48. I'm black. I grew up watching my mom clean other people's houses and my dad fix other people's roofs. I learned early that to some folks, I'd forever be the help, no matter how many years I showed up on time and did my job right. When I got hired on at Oakridge Heights apartments 11 years ago, it felt like a blessing. Full-time maintenance tech, benefits, health insurance, paid time off, a real badge with my name on it. My job was everything: fixing leaky sinks, unclogging drains, changing air filters, patching drywall, hauling trash, tightening doors, setting up furniture for HOA meetings and kids' birthday parties in the clubhouse. Most residents said hi the same way: quick, polite, but distant. "Morning, Marcus." "Thanks, man." And honestly, that was fine. I wasn't looking for friends. I just wanted respect. Then the rumors started. First, it was Mrs. Carter in Building A saying at the front desk that a very expensive pair of earrings had gone missing. Then Mr. Jacobs complaining that some cash he knew he'd left in a drawer wasn't there anymore. But it was all vague. No dates, no specifics, just feelings. I heard the whispers on the radios, in stairwells, behind half-closed doors. Ever since they started hiring outside guys. Outside guys. I'd been there longer than most of the residents, but to them, I would always be from somewhere else. When Mr. Thompson started losing things, everything changed. He came straight to Sarah. He demanded camera checks, incident reports, policy changes. He talked about liability and breach of security and taking it up with the HOA board. I had no idea he had installed a private camera on his floor. Just him and Sarah knew. For security, he'd said. Security for who, I would learn later. Back in that meeting in the community room, I felt the ground shift under my feet. "So that's it?" I asked. "You already decided I'm the one?" Sarah sighed. "Marcus, I'm in a very hard spot," she said. "I have a resident threatening to sue the management company if we don't act. I have other residents telling me they don't feel safe. It's complicated." "Complicated for who?" I asked. "For people who live here and are scared of losing a watch, or for a guy who works here and is scared of losing his job?" The silence was thick. Mr. Thompson stood up. "Look, I don't want drama," he said. "I just want this resolved. This type of person—" He stopped himself mid-sentence, but I heard the rest even if he didn't say it. "This type of person doesn't fit a building like this," he continued. "If you want to investigate more, Sarah, fine. But in my opinion, it's just a matter of time before he slips up and gets caught, if he hasn't already." He grabbed his phone, ready to walk out. That's when it happened. Sarah frowned, a thought clearly running behind her eyes. "Mr. Thompson, hang on a second," she said. He turned, annoyed. "What now?" I just remembered something, she said slowly. Back when the old manager, Paul, was here, we installed the test camera in the service hallway, the one by the storage closet and trash room on your side of the building. I don't think it was ever removed. It's not tied into the main security feed, but it might still be recording on a backup DVR. He rolled his eyes. So what? He said. You think we're going to find the boogeyman in some dusty basement camera? This is a waste of time. I know what I saw. He goes up with an empty bag and comes down with a full one. What else do you need? I need to see it. For my own responsibility. If that camera is still running, we might have more context. For the first time that day, I saw a flicker of something like fear cross his face. Fine, he said sharply. Knock yourself out. Just don't take too long. I'm not living in a building where a thief walks free in a staff uniform. I didn't say anything. I just followed them down to the security office in the basement. One of the guards, Kyle, had been there a while. Sarah asked him about the old camera. Kyle, that old camera in the service corridor, the one near the recycling room, she said. Is it still online? He rubbed the back of his neck. I think so. We never took it down. It just doesn't feed into the main monitors. I'm pretty sure it records on that old DVR in the closet. Can you pull the footage from the other night? She asked, giving the date and approximate time of Mr. Thompson's last theft. He typed for a while, clicked through folders, then brought up a new window. There it was, a narrow service hallway, door to the trash and recycling room on the right, exit door at the end. Same date, timestamp just a couple minutes after the hallway clip we'd seen upstairs. Roll it back a little, Sarah said. Now play it slowly. We watched in silence. First, a janitor pushed a cart through the shot, then a dog walker cut across with two big golden retrievers heading toward the garage. A minute passed, 2. Then the service door that led to Mr. Thompson's area opened. I held my breath. But it wasn't me coming out. It was a teenager.
Baseball cap, expensive hoodie, designer sneakers. Moving fast, looking left and right like he knew he shouldn't be there. He had a high-end shopping bag in one hand and a backpack on his shoulders. "Stop it!" Mr. Thompson snapped. Kyle hit pause. Even in the grainy light, the kid's face was clear enough. It was his son, the same kid I'd watched growing up in that building, the one who sometimes stomped past me in the lobby with earbuds in, never even looking my way when I said good morning. Sarah stared at the screen, then at Mr. Thompson. "Is that?" she started. He went very red. "That proves nothing," he said quickly. "He could be carrying his own stuff. It's his home, Sarah. He can move things around his own place if he wants." Kyle hit play before anyone could stop him. We watched the kid head down the hallway and disappear from the frame. A moment later, he came back into view. The shopping bag was gone. The backpack looked a lot flatter now. "Can you switch to the back door camera by the garage?" I asked quietly. Kyle clicked a couple more times and switched the view. Now we could see the service entrance by the parking lot, a small side gate that opened to the street. Same date, same time. A skinny guy in a hoodie stood half in the shadows, near the fence, looking up and down the street like he was waiting for someone. Then Mr. Thompson's son came into view from the inside, same backpack on his shoulders, shopping bag in hand. He walked over, handed the bag to the guy, who opened it, peered inside, then shoved what was inside into his own backpack. Money changed hands, small folded bills. The kid turned around, walked back to the door that led inside the building. The other guy jogged off down the street. No commentary, no excuses, just video. No one said a word. The silence felt heavy, like the whole room was holding its breath. Sarah finally broke it. "Mr. Thompson," she said quietly, "this is serious." He ran a hand over his face. "This footage is illegal," he blurted out. "You can't have cameras pointing out like that without posting notices. I can sue the building for this, for violating my family's privacy." The irony almost made me laugh. He had dragged me into a room, used private hallway footage to paint me as a thief with no hesitation.
Now, suddenly, cameras were a privacy issue. The camera is in the interior service hall. The bit of street it captures is incidental. What it clearly shows is a transaction involving items matching what you reported missing. She looked him in the eye. We need to face what that means. He glanced at me then, like he'd forgotten I was there. Our eyes met. You're really going to take his word over mine? He asked her, pointing at me. You're taking the side of an employee over a resident, over my family? I'm taking the side of what I can see, she said. The days that followed were a strange mix of relief and anger. Yes, the truth was there, frozen in those frames. Yes, the camera he didn't know about had recorded everything. But nothing erased the way he looked at me when he said, "this type of person." Nothing erased the way some other residents had started to watch me a little closer in the hallways, clutching their purses a little tighter when they walked by. Sarah called me back to her office. "Marcus," she said, eyes a little glassy, "I owe you an apology. I should have pushed back harder before. I let pressure from the HOA and a powerful resident make me doubt someone who's given this place more than 10 years of his life." I shook my head. "You listened when it mattered. That already puts you ahead of a lot of people." She took a breath. "We're calling an all-residents meeting. The board needs to hear this, and so do the people who've been talking. I'm going to present the facts. You only have to come if you want to." For a second, I almost said no. I almost chose to stay invisible, let them sort it out in their own way. But then I thought of my daughter, of my mom, of every other guy who wore a uniform like mine. "I'll be there." The meeting was tense from the start. Half the room looked curious, the other half looked annoyed, like this was an inconvenience, something that was taking them away from better things. Sarah summarized the situation, the missing items, the private hallway footage, the service corridor camera. Then she nodded to Kyle. "Go ahead," she said. He projected the video onto the big screen at the front of the room. First, the hallway outside the penthouse, then the service corridor, then the back entrance by the parking lot. You could feel the air change when people began to recognize whose kid they were looking at. Some shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others avoided turning to look at Mr. Thompson, who sat in the front row, jaw clenched, arms folded so tight you could see the veins in his hands. When the last clip ended, the room went silent. Sarah let the silence hang for a moment, then turned to Mr. Thompson. "You believe," she said carefully, "you have something to say to Marcus." All eyes went to him. He stared straight ahead for a long second, then another. "Marcus," he started, I jumped to conclusions. I let my anger get ahead of the facts. If I said anything that offended you, I apologize." It wasn't the kind of apology I would have written for him, if you know what I mean. But from a man like that, in front of a room like this, it was more than I ever expected to hear.
I could have just nodded and let it go at that. I could have kept my head down and gone back to fixing broken things in silence. But there was something inside me that had been building for years. I didn't want to explode. I wanted to speak. "I accept your apology, sir," I said. "But with all due respect, this isn't just about your anger getting ahead of the facts." I looked around the room, at all the faces that had watched that footage. You didn't look at me and think, there must be some mistake. You looked at me and thought, that makes sense. Not because you had proof, but because of who I am. Because I'm the one in the uniform. Because I'm the black guy who has keys to your building. A few people shifted in their seats. "I've been here more than 10 years, I went on. I've been in your apartments fixing leaks, replacing light fixtures, helping you move furniture. I've seen jewelry on your dressers, cash on your countertops. Nothing ever went missing. The second it did, the story wasn't, we have a problem somewhere in the building. It was, he fits the profile." I let that word hang there for a second. Profile. "Today, the camera saved me," I said. "But you all know there are plenty of places where there is no camera, no hallway recording the truth, no manager willing to dig deeper.
There are a lot of guys like me out there who don't get the benefit of a second look. They just lose their jobs, or worse. A woman in the second row wiped her eyes. A man in the back stared hard at the floor. I'm not saying his kid is a monster, I added, nodding toward Mr. Thompson without looking at him. Things had to be pretty bad in his head or in his life for him to start doing something like that. Addiction, pressure, something. I get that. I hope he gets the help he needs. I looked around the room again. What I am saying is this: next time something goes missing, before you start pointing at the people with the least power in this place, remember what you watched on that screen tonight. Remember how sure you all were that the story made sense when you heard a certain name and saw a certain face. I took a deep breath. Ask yourselves if you're really seeing the truth or just your own prejudice wearing somebody else's uniform. Sarah was crying by then. A couple of residents came up to me afterward. Some were sincere. Others, I could tell, were more worried about how they looked in front of their neighbors than about me. One older lady grabbed my hand and squeezed it hard. "I'm so sorry, honey. I thought the worst of you, and you never gave me a reason to." I just nodded. Her apology was more about her conscience than my healing. But still, a part of me appreciated that she said it out loud. Mr. Thompson fought it for a while. He talked about suing the building for unauthorized surveillance. He complained to the management company. He tried to say the footage was inadmissible, that it didn't tell the full story. But the irony was hard to ignore, even for the HOA board. He had been the first one to weaponize a camera, to treat what he thought he saw as absolute truth and use it against me. Now that a different camera showed a different truth, suddenly the whole idea of cameras made him uncomfortable. At some point, things went quiet. I heard through the grapevine that his son was in some kind of treatment program. Rumors said rehab, others said a different school, maybe a move to another city. I don't really know. It's not my business. My business is what I did next. I kept showing up. Same uniform, same backpack, same keys, same care for a building where I still fix things for people who once looked at me like I was the problem. There was one thing I carried with me now that I didn't have before. The knowledge that at least in this one corner of the world, a few people had been forced to see something they'd spent their whole lives not seeing. The fact that racism isn't always a slur screamed on a sidewalk. Sometimes it's just deciding, without realizing you're deciding, who looks guilty in your head before you know the story. Every now and then, I walk down that service hallway where the old camera is still bolted into the ceiling. I look up at that little dark eye in the corner, and I think about all the stories out there that will never have a recording to set them straight. In my case, there was. That's the only reason I'm here telling you this now. So maybe next time you hear someone say, "Yeah, they never proved it, but you know the type," you'll remember my face, my uniform, my name. And maybe you'll stop and ask yourself, am I looking at the evidence or just at my own bias reflected back at me? And if you were sitting in that chair where I sat that day, with everyone already sure they knew your story, would a camera be there to save you?